I was 79 the morning my own daughter looked me in the eye and told the doctor I couldn't remember my name. It was March 2nd, 2022, cold, gray Ohio morning, the kind where the wind feels like it's peeling the years right off you. I sat there in that little exam room at Mercy West Hospital, the paper crinkling under me, listening to her speak like I wasn't even in the damn room. "He's been confused," she said. "He forgets conversations. He got lost driving last week." I hadn't gotten lost. I'd taken the long way home because the main road was closed, but she didn't bother mentioning that. Didn't fit the story she wanted. The doctor, young guy, barely older than my grandson, looked at me with that soft pity doctors use when they think you're slipping. "Mr. Carver, do you know what day it is?" "Wednesday," I answered. My voice was steady, but my stomach churned. "March 2nd. He nodded, but he didn't look convinced. I could feel it, the whole room already deciding who I was, an old man sliding downhill head first. My daughter, Lisa, sighed like she'd been carrying the weight of me for years. "Dad, it's okay. We just want to keep you safe." Safe, that word tasted like chalk. I wanted to grab her wrist and tell her I knew exactly what she was doing, that I'd seen the notices from Huntington Bank about inquiries on my accounts, that I noticed how she flinched every time the mail came, that I wasn't as blind or as broken as she needed me to be. But I didn't say a thing, not yet. See, by then I already knew something was wrong. I'd known for months. Little things at first, a checkbook out of place, a credit card statement with charges I didn't recognize, a conversation with my grandson where he casually mentioned, "Mom said you're getting forgetful." Forgetful, Jesus. I sat there in that exam room with the cold metal of my old Timex watch pressing into my wrist, and something deep inside me clicked into place. It wasn't anger. Not yet. It was more like the quiet settling of dust before a storm. The doctor stepped out to review notes, leaving the two of us alone. Lisa put her hand on my knee. "Dad, look at me. You need help. Please stop fighting it." "I don't need help," I said softly. "I need honesty." Her smile twitched. "What's that supposed to mean?" I studied her, my own daughter, standing there in her neat coat, hair pulled back, her purse tight against her side like she expected me to reach for it. A stranger, really. "You've been talking about me behind my back," I said, "telling people I'm losing my mind." She blinked, then crossed her arms. "Dad, it's not behind your back if I'm trying to protect you." Her voice was firm, rehearsed, defensive. The kind of tone you use when you've already told the story to other people and you're sticking to it. I realized then she truly believed she had me cornered. But she didn't know what I'd already done. She didn't know that 3 weeks earlier, after finding 2 strange withdrawals on my savings account, $1, $500 each, both labeled family assistance, I bought myself a little something from Best Buy on Glenway Avenue. A tiny digital recorder, thin as a pack of gum, clear audio from across a room. It was in my shirt pocket that morning. Quiet patient, watching everything. The doctor came back in, carrying a clipboard like it held my future. "Mr. Carver, I'd like to schedule a cognitive assessment. It'll help us understand what's going on." Lisa nodded eagerly, too eagerly. That was when the anger finally sparked, just a flicker but hot, sharp, familiar. "Doc," I said, "let me ask you something. Are you talking to me or to the story she's feeding you?" He hesitated, just a heartbeat, but it was enough. "She's my daughter," I said, "not my keeper." Lisa's eyes hardened, and for the first time I saw it plain as day, the calculation, the wheels turning, the money she thought she was securing, the control. I felt the recorder against my chest, warm from my skin. They thought I was slipping. They thought they could tighten the noose slowly until I didn't even feel it. They thought I'd go quietly, that I'd sign whatever papers they put in front of me, that I'd nod along as they transferred everything, my accounts, my house, my truck, into protective management. But they didn't know I'd already started documenting every single moment. And I knew something else too, something that calmed me in a way that probably would have scared them if they'd seen it in my eyes. Once you start recording people who are lying to you, they always give you more than you expect. By the time that doctor finished speaking, I'd already decided exactly how this was going to play out. And Lisa, she had no idea the trap she'd just walked into. Before all this, before the lies, before the tests, before I started carrying a recorder like it was a second heartbeat, my life was pretty simple. I want you to understand that part because folks think trouble like this just comes crashing in one day. It doesn't, it seeps in. Slow, quiet, like water under a door. I was living alone in my little brick house in Delhi Township, the same place Mary and I bought back in '87. 3 bedrooms, old oak floors, drafty windows that I kept meaning to replace. A yard big enough for a man to mow without needing a damn riding tractor. I did my own grocery runs. Kroger on Delhi Pike every Thursday morning. Coffee at the Speedway on Anderson Ferry. Half gas station ritual, half excuse to talk with people who weren't family. I wasn't lonely. At least not in the way folks imagine an old man living alone would be. I had my routines. I watched the Reds even when they played like garbage. I tinkered with that old Ford F-150 of mine, the '98 model with the cracked dashboard. I grilled burgers on Sundays when the weather cooperated. Life was quiet, steady. Lisa wasn't always this way. I want to make that clear. When Mary died in 2014, she was the one who drove down from Columbus every other weekend. She cleaned the garage, made sure I took my blood pressure meds, helped me sort out paperwork I didn't understand. Back then, I'd have handed her the keys to my whole life without a second thought. But time changes people. Money changes people even faster. It started after she divorced her husband, Tom. That was 2019. I remember because she sat at my kitchen table with her hands around a mug of coffee, staring at the steam like it held answers. He left me with everything, she said. The mortgage, the credit cards, the car payment, everything. I didn't know the full story, but I knew pain when I saw it, so I helped. 1,000 here, 500 there. Nothing I couldn't spare. I'd spent 40 years on the line at the Ford plant, local 863, saving every damn month. I wasn't rich, but I wasn't drowning either. Then came COVID. She got furloughed, fell behind on bills, started talking about financial stress like it was a dark cloud only she could see. I didn't notice the shift at first. It was small things. Her taking my mail so I don't have to bend for the box. Her offering to manage my prescriptions. Her saying, "Dad, maybe I should help you with your accounts just to make things easier." See, she didn't start by taking. She started by helping. That's how betrayal works. One evening, summer of 2021, hot enough that the air felt sticky, I heard her in the living room talking quietly on her phone. I wasn't trying to listen, but her voice carried. "No, he's fine. He doesn't know anything. Just give me time." A pause then. "Of course he'll sign it. He trusts me." When she realized I'd stepped out of the hallway, she snapped her phone shut and plastered on a smile. "Oh, Dad didn't hear you." "Who was that?" I asked. "Work stuff," she said quickly, too quickly. I didn't press. Maybe I should have. But when it's your kid, your brain twists itself into knots trying to give them the benefit of the doubt. By fall, she was visiting more often. At first, I thought she was finally recovering from the divorce, but her questions started sounding rehearsed. "Dad, do you ever forget where you put things? Have you been eating okay? You didn't answer when I called Tuesday. Were you asleep or confused?" Confused. That word slid into conversation slick as oil. I'd laugh it off. "Lisa, I'm old, not lost." She'd smile, but her eyes would skim the room like she was taking inventory of my decline. Then came the first real crack, December 9th, 2021. I remember because I'd been at the grocery store and my debit card wouldn't go through. Insufficient funds. Impossible. I kept a cushion in that checking account. When I got home, I logged into online banking slowly, with my reading glasses sliding down my nose, and saw 2 withdrawals labeled Transfer Authorization, L. Carver. Each for $1,500. I stared at the screen until the numbers blurred. My hands shook, not from age, but from something colder. She didn't even tell me. When she came by that weekend, I confronted her gently at first. "Lisa, did you transfer money from my account?" She didn't blink, didn't even look surprised. Dad, you said I could borrow it. Remember, you must have forgotten. I hadn't forgotten. I knew damn well I'd never agreed to that. But her tone was confident, steady, like she genuinely believed I'd lost my memory. Dad, she added, putting a hand on my arm, you're under a lot of stress lately. Maybe you're not keeping track. Something in me recoiled, a quiet fear, not for my mind but for hers. Something had changed in her, something sharp and hungry. Around January is when I bought the recorder. Best Buy, $79.99, paid in cash. A teenage clerk asked if I needed help setting it up. I've been using machines longer than you've been alive, I muttered, and he laughed like he thought I was joking. I was. The first thing I recorded was Lisa's visit that weekend. She tried to tell me again I'd forgotten conversations, that I'd mixed up dates, and repeated myself 3 times at Christmas. I listened to it that night in bed, the house creaking the way old houses do. Hearing her voice without the distraction of her face, it chilled me. She sounded confident, practiced, like she'd rehearsed how to gaslight her own father. That's when I started to wonder. Who else was she telling this story to? Neighbors, extended family, her boyfriend? Or someone more official? Someone like social services? Or a doctor? Or a bank manager? I didn't know yet. But I was going to find out. And that recorder, it was going to catch everything she never expected me to hear. You know, people talk about the moment everything changed like it's some big dramatic explosion. But in my life, it came on a Wednesday. A quiet, regular, nothing special Wednesday, January 12th, 2022. Cold enough that the inside of my truck windows frosted even with the defroster blasting. The kind of day that feels like it's waiting for bad news. I'd gone to the bank, Huntington, the one-off rapid run, because something kept gnawing at me about those withdrawals Lisa made. The 2 $1,500 transfers were sitting in my mind like cinder blocks. I wanted to hear it from a human being, not a computer screen. The young teller, a woman named Kayla, was polite in that professional, scripted way they teach them. "How can I help you today, Mr. Carver?" she asked with a smile. But when I handed her my ID and asked if anyone besides me had been accessing my account, her expression shifted. Subtle, but real. "One moment," she said, clicking around her screen. Her eyes flicked back and forth, her eyebrows tightening ever so slightly. Finally, she looked up. "Sir, it looks like someone with secondary authorization has been transferring funds." "Secondary authorization?" I asked, my voice feeling too tight to be casual. "Yes, someone named," she scrolled, "L. Carver." My heart thudded. And when was that authorization added? She clicked again, her jaw tightened. December 3rd. I felt my pulse jump. December 3rd was the day I'd gone to Lisa's house to help her hang Christmas lights. We'd had hot cocoa. She de-hugged me goodbye. She'd also apparently added herself to my account. "Ma'am," I said, leaning a little closer, "I didn't add her. I didn't authorize that." She swallowed. "I can't speak to how it was added, but I can flag this for review." Her voice dropped lower. "You may also want to contact our fraud department." I thanked her and walked out into the cold air, stunned by a kind of betrayal I wouldn't wish on my worst enemy. My breath fogged up in front of me, but all I could see was Lisa's face from the week before. Calm, confident. "Dad, you must have forgotten." Forgotten. 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 That word echoed like footsteps in an empty hall. That night I set the recorder on the kitchen table and just stared at it a while. It looked so small, fragile, like a toy. Hard to believe it was the only thing standing between me and whatever trap Lisa was building. I pressed the file button. The recording of her last visit played, her voice soft but sharp underneath, like a blade wrapped in cotton. "Dad, you can't keep track of things the way you used to. You don't pay bills on time. You confuse me with Mom." I paused it, my throat tightened. "I never confused you with your mother," I whispered to the empty room. But the recorder didn't care. It just blinked its little red light, waiting for the next truth to capture. The second crack came the next morning when the phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't pick up. Something told me I should. Mr. Carver, a man's voice asked. This is Daniel Brooks from the Hamilton County Adult Protective Services. My spine went cold. We received a wellness concern about possible cognitive decline. We'd like to schedule a home visit to make sure you're safe and supported. A wellness concern. Cognitive decline. Home visit. I just sat there, the cordless phone warm against my ear. Who filed that concern? I asked. I can't disclose that yet, he said, but they provided detailed reports. Reports plural. My daughter was building a case, not a conversation, a case. I'm fine, I snapped, harder than I meant to. I understand, he said gently, but we still need to do the home check. When? Tomorrow at 10 a.m. I hung up and sat at the kitchen table, staring at the faded knot in the wood where Mary once spilled gravy and blamed the dog. A home visit from APS. That meant the clock had officially started. Lisa showed up that evening without calling. She walked in like she owned the place, too fast, too bright. Dad, she said, forcing a big smile, just checking on you. I slid the recorder into my shirt pocket and turned it on with my thumb. You filed a report on me, I said. She blinked, startled, but only for a second. Then her expression softened like she'd expected this, like she'd rehearsed the whole conversation. Dad, she said carefully, I just want what's best. You've been confused lately, missing things, mixing up dates. The bank called me last week because you. The bank didn't call you, I cut in. She froze. They called me, I added, and they told me someone added themselves to my account. Her smile strained. Dad, we talked about that. No, I said, my voice low, steady. You talked, I listened, and now you're trying to paint me as incompetent. Her jaw tightened. I'm trying to help you. By coming after my house, I asked, my accounts, my independence. For the first time I saw her mask slip, just a flicker, but enough to reveal the sharpness beneath. Dad, she said, taking a step closer, if you don't let me help you now, it might be too late later. Something about that sentence chilled me deeper than anything else. It wasn't concern. It was strategy. We can talk tomorrow, she said, after your home visit. How'd you know it was tomorrow? I asked. Her eyes widened just a fraction of a second. Oh, he mentioned a few possible dates. A lie, a small one, but the recorder caught it. She left soon after, closing the door softly behind her. I sat down at the table again, heart hammering. I pressed play on the recording. Her voice filled the room. Dad, you've been confused lately. Dad, we talked about this. If you don't let me help now. Hearing it again without her eyes on me stripped away every excuse I'd been giving her in my head. This wasn't stress. This wasn't worry. This wasn't a daughter looking out for her father. This was a takeover. A quiet, calculated, legal takeover. And tomorrow morning, APS was walking through my door to evaluate whether I needed a guardian. That was when I made my first real decision. If she wanted a battle, she picked the wrong old man. The morning APS came, the house felt too quiet. Not peaceful quiet, funeral quiet. The kind where even the refrigerator hums sounds like it's holding its breath. I woke up at 5:12 a.m., long before Daniel Brooks was due to arrive. Couldn't sleep. My thoughts kept circling the same drain. My daughter is trying to take my life away from me while I'm still alive. I made coffee strong enough to wake the dead, sat at the kitchen table and slipped the recorder into my flannel shirt pocket. I pressed it once. The red light blinked. Ready. At 9:55 a.m. a county SUV pulled up. White paint, green stripe. My chest tightened. Daniel was younger than I expected, maybe late 30s, bald, friendly eyes. He stepped inside like he'd walked into 100 homes just like mine. Good morning, Mr. Carver, he said warmly. Just here to make sure everything's okay. I'm fine, I said. Coffee. He smiled. I won't say no. While I poured him a cup, he looked around the house, slowly, methodically. He wasn't judging, he was assessing. Your place is tidy, he said. Do you do all your own cooking? Everything except Thanksgiving, I said. I can't bake worth a damn. He chuckled, then got serious. I'm going to ask some questions, routine stuff. I nodded. What day is it? Thursday, January 13th. Who's the president? Unfortunately, still Biden. He laughed harder than he needed to. Fair enough. How's your memory been lately? Sharp as ever. He made a note on his clipboard. That felt like hope. But then he asked, your daughter mentioned you've been confused about your finances, forgetting transactions. There it was, the knife sliding in. She lied, I said plainly. He looked up. You're sure? I know what happened in my own damn life. Before he could respond, there was a knock at the door. I felt the air shift. You know that feeling when a storm walks into the room before the thunder hits? Lisa stepped inside without waiting to be asked. She smiled at Daniel, wide and practiced. Hi, I'm his daughter, Lisa, she said sweetly. How's everything going? Daniel nodded politely. We're just getting started. She walked over to me, placed her hand on my shoulder. Dad, I'm here to support you, okay? Support? That fake sugary tone. My stomach twisted. Daniel glanced at her, then at me. Mr. Carver has been answering questions appropriately. Well, she said with a soft laugh, he has good days and bad days. I felt my heartbeat in my throat. Lisa, I said, why don't you let the man do his job? She ignored me. Actually, she continued, turning to Daniel, I brought some things that might help clarify. She opened her purse and pulled out a stack of papers, printed emails, bank screenshots, notes in her handwriting. My handwriting was nowhere in sight. These are some examples of Dad's confusion, times he couldn't remember conversations or mixed up events, and there's financial stuff too. She handed the stack to him. Daniel flipped through the pages, frowning slightly. She was tightening the noose. Dad, she said sweetly, placing a hand on my arm, just be honest. You've been overwhelmed. I felt heat rise in my chest, not embarrassment, rage. I haven't forgotten a damn thing, I said. You have. Her eyebrows lifted. What does that mean? It means I remember December 3rd. Her face went still. You added yourself to my bank account, I said quietly, without my permission. Her mouth opened, but her eyes flicked to the recorder bulge in my shirt pocket, just for a second, but I saw it. She knew. Dad, she said carefully, we talked about this. No, I cut in. You talked and then you lied. Daniel raised his eyebrows. Is that true, Ms. Carver? You were added to his account. She scrambled. My father asked me to help him manage bills. He forgot he gave permission. There it was, the lie, clean, polished, delivered without hesitation. I took a slow breath. This was the moment everything changed, because I finally realized something that hit me harder than any betrayal before it. She believed her own lie. Maybe she convinced herself I was slipping. Maybe she convinced herself she was saving me. Maybe she convinced herself that the money, my money, was practically hers already. Maybe the story she'd written in her head made more sense than the truth. But the truth doesn't care about stories. And it sure as hell doesn't care about intentions. Daniel looked at me. Mr. Carver, would you feel comfortable reviewing your accounts and medications with me privately? I opened my mouth to say yes, but Lisa jumped in. Actually, I should be here, she insisted, for context. No, I said firmly, you should not. She froze. Daniel hesitated. Mr. Carver, it's your choice. My voice was steady. She waits outside. A beat of silence. Then Daniel nodded. Ms. Carver, we need a private conversation. Lisa stared at me. Anger, disbelief, and something else, fear, flashed in her eyes. She didn't argue. She didn't smile. She just walked out the door and closed it a little too hard behind her. The house felt lighter instantly. Daniel set the papers on the table. Mr. Carver, some of these notes are concerning, but I want to hear your version. So I told him. Everything. The withdrawals. The rehearsed lines. The forgetting. The APS call. The lies. He listened, silent, thoughtful. When I finished, he let out a slow breath. This, he said carefully, might not be a cognitive issue at all. It may be a family control issue. I felt something inside me loosen. Validation, real, solid validation. Then Daniel asked the question that swung the whole damn door open. Mr. Carver, do you have any evidence of these conversations? I reached into my shirt pocket, pulled out the recorder, placed it on the table and said, I've got everything. He stared at it, everything. Every visit since New Year's. His face shifted in a way I'll never forget, a mix of surprise, respect, and a dawning sense of just how deep this went. He reached for the recorder. Mr. Carver, he said gently, this changes everything. Out on the porch, through the window, I saw Lisa pacing, her phone pressed to her ear. She had no idea the ground had just vanished beneath her feet. I didn't sleep that night, not a wink. After Daniel left, with my recorder in his pocket and a promise to review the material immediately, the house felt still in a way that scared me, not because I was alone. I'd been alone for years, but because I knew something had shifted. A door had opened, and whatever was on the other side wasn't mercy. I watched from the living room window as Lisa sat in her car for nearly 15 minutes, talking on the phone, every gesture sharp and frantic. She kept glancing back toward the house like she expected me to burst out and stop her. I didn't. I let her sit there in her panic, let her stew, let her wonder what I told Daniel. When she finally drove off, I exhaled for the first time in what felt like hours. But the relief didn't last. Because the next 3 weeks, those were the darkest of my life. 2 days after the APS visit, I got a call from my doctor's office. A gentle-voiced receptionist named Judy said, Mr. Carver, we've received reports of cognitive concerns and would like you to schedule a follow-up assessment. Reports? Plural. By who? I asked. She hesitated, a family member. That was the moment something inside me cracked, not the rage, not the betrayal. Something smaller, something older. The part of me that still remembered Lisa as a little girl running across the yard with scraped knees. The kid who cried when her goldfish died. The teenager who hugged me after her first heartbreak. That daughter was gone. This woman had replaced her. I hung up without scheduling the assessment. 3 days later, I got a letter from Huntington Bank. A real one, official, stamped, heavy envelope. Notification of account inquiry and potential, joint authorization adjustment. I read it twice before the meaning settled in. Lisa had tried to expand her authority over my accounts. Not remove it. Expand it. She wasn't backing down, she was doubling down. My throat went dry. I sat at the kitchen table with that letter in my hands so long the edges softened under my fingers. I felt like a man watching termites crawl through the beams of his house, quiet destruction, eating from the inside out. The phone started ringing more. Family, neighbors, church folks. All saying the same damn thing. Lisa said you're having a hard time. She's worried about you. She said you've been confused lately. She told us you might be slipping. Slipping. Christ, that word was everywhere, like she'd passed out a script. I tried explaining to a few people, tried saying I was fine, sharp, aware. But the more I insisted, the more their eyes softened with pity, like I didn't even know I was losing it. The thing about being old. People believe your decline long before it actually starts. By the second week of January, I stopped answering the phone altogether. January 24th. Winter storm rolling through, heavy slush hitting the windows hard enough to sound like someone tapping. I made dinner, microwave pot roast from Kroger, tasted like salty cardboard, and sat at the table feeling smaller than I had in years. Every sound in the house felt louder. The ticking of the kitchen clock, the hum of the furnace, the wind rattling the gutters. It all pressed in on me, reminding me just how alone I really was. I don't mind telling you this, I cried that night. Not loud, not dramatic, just sat there with my hands clasped and my eyes wet, feeling like the last tree in a clearing after a storm took the rest. I kept thinking, is this what she wants? To break me down so I'll hand her everything. It wasn't just the money. It was my dignity, my independence, my life. I went to bed early, but sleep didn't come easy. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her sitting in that exam room telling the doctor I was confused. I heard her voice saying I forgot conversations. I saw her handing those papers to Daniel, acting like she was the only person on earth who cared. Around 2 a.m. I got up and paced the hall. My knees ached, my back was tight, my breath felt too heavy in my chest. I whispered into the darkness, "Mary, I wish you were here." The house didn't answer. The next morning there was a knock at my door, not pounding, just steady. When I opened it, Daniel stood there, cold air swirling around him, snow gathering on his coat. He had my recorder in one hand and a folder in the other. "Mr. Carver," he said, "can we talk?" I stepped aside. He came in, sat at the table, and folded his hands like he was bracing himself. "I listened to the recordings," he said softly. My heart thudded. And I asked. "They're troubling," he said. "Very troubling. You're coherent. You're consistent. He paused. Your daughter is pushing a narrative that doesn't match reality." I swallowed hard. He opened the folder and slid a document toward me. "This is a preliminary report stating that you are competent, capable, and not exhibiting signs of cognitive decline." I stared at it, my name printed across the top, his signature at the bottom. "But," Daniel added, "the situation isn't over. She's already initiated a request with the probate court for temporary guardianship." My breath caught. He continued, "That means she's going to try to get legal control over your assets, your decisions, and your medical rights." The room tilted slightly. "But," he said, placing a firm hand on the table, "you're not alone, and you have evidence she never expected you to have." I looked up at him, feeling something spark deep inside me. Not hope. Not yet. But resolve. Real, solid, unshakable resolve. "What do I do?" I asked. Daniel leaned forward. "You fight with help, and I know exactly who you need to call." That was the moment my descent ended. And the war began. There's a moment in every old man's life when he realizes he can't fight a war alone, not even one he never asked for. Mine came the day after Daniel handed me that competency report. I sat at the kitchen table with the morning sun cutting across the wood, dust floating in the air like tiny ghosts, the house still too quiet. The storm outside had passed, but the one inside me was just getting started. I kept turning that report over in my hands, the weight of it surprising. One sheet of paper saying I wasn't crazy. One sheet of paper standing between me and the cage my daughter was trying to lock me in. But I knew damn well it wouldn't be enough. Probate court doesn't run on emotion or family history. It runs on evidence, testimony, timelines. And Lisa had been laying down her false trail for months, convincing people, planting seeds, painting me as forgetful while smiling through it. Daniel had been right. I needed help. But I didn't know from who. Not until the knock came. I opened the door to find Rosa standing there. Nurse Rosa from the clinic. Short, mid-50s, strong hands, sharp eyes. The kind of woman who could calm a panicking patient just by the way she breathed. She'd checked my vitals during my exam a few months earlier. I remembered her, but I wasn't expecting her to show up on my porch with snow clinging to her boots and a Tupperware of chicken chili in her hands. "Might be a little salty," she said, "but it'll warm you up." I blinked. "What brings you here?" She stepped inside without waiting for an invitation, just like every woman who ever knew when an old man needed saving before he did. "Your daughter stopped by the clinic," she said. "Wanted your medical records, asked a lot of questions, asked about your memory. Something felt off." I felt my jaw tighten. "Did you give her anything?" Rosa gave me a look, one eyebrow up, unimpressed. "Do I look like someone who hands out private records because a pretty voice asks nicely?" I couldn't help the chuckle that escaped me. Then her expression softened. "Mr. Carver, you look worn down." I admitted, my voice low. She made me sit, warmed the chili on the stove, and listened while I told her everything. The bank withdrawals, the recordings, the APS visit, the guardianship filing. She didn't interrupt, not once, just listened, arms folded, eyes sharp and dark. When I finished, she let out a long breath. Your daughter's not just manipulating you. She's creating a legal foundation to take everything. That's what Daniel said. Well, she replied, Daniel's right, and you're going to need more than a social worker to untangle this mess. I rubbed my hands over my face. Who do I even go to? A lawyer. Yes, she said, but not just any lawyer. You need someone who's seen this exact kind of thing before. She reached for her purse and pulled out a business card. Attorney Margaret Chen, Elder Law and Probate Defense, Cincinnati, OH. I turned the card over in my palm, smooth, heavy cardstock, serious. She helped my neighbor when her son tried the same thing, Rosa said quietly. She's tough, and fair. You need tough. Do you think she'll take my case? Rosa shrugged. You're not crazy, you're not declining, and you've got evidence. If that woman doesn't take your case, then I'm a penguin. Something warmed in my chest. Gratitude, maybe, or the stubborn old spark of defiance growing back to life. Why are you helping me? I asked. Her expression softened. Because my father went through the same damn thing. He didn't have anyone to stand up for him. I promised myself I wouldn't let another man his age get railroaded by his own family. I stared at her for a long moment. Thank you. She touched my arm, firm, warm, reassuring. Get in the fight, Mr. Carver. You're not done yet. The second ally I found wasn't a person I expected either. Zach. My grandson. Not the one Lisa filled with poison whispers. This was my oldest daughter's boy. 24, lanky as a fishing pole, glasses always sliding down his nose, and a brain wired for computers in a way mine never was. He showed up that same afternoon carrying a laptop bag and smelling faintly of burnt coffee. Mom told me what's going on, he said. Not Lisa, Aunt Karen, she's worried. He sat down, opened his laptop, and cracked his knuckles like a surgeon prepping for heart surgery. Okay, Grandpa, he said, show me everything. I did. And he got to work. You ever watch a kid tear through digital files like a bloodhound? It's something else. Zach had this intense, focused look, jaw tight, eyes narrow, hands flying over the keys. Every few minutes, he muttered something. Found it. Oh, damn. She really did that. Grandpa, this is bad. Holy hell, this recorder is crisp. He loaded every audio file onto his machine, cleaned the sound, cut out background noise, amplified the important parts. Then he did something past my pay grade. He traced the IP address changes on my bank account, found the moment someone logged in from a location 20 miles north of my house, right where Lisa lived. Grandpa, he said, this is proof, real proof. My throat tightened. Good enough for court. Good enough for a judge to raise an eyebrow, he said, but we need more. He pulled out his phone. I'm setting up cameras. Cameras? I asked. Blink cams, tiny ones, motion activated. If she comes here again, we capture everything. I felt something inside me harden, not fear, readiness. Zach, I said quietly, you don't have to get in the middle of this. He looked at me with a seriousness I'd never seen on him before. Grandpa, he said, voice steady, you fought for Mom when she needed you. You fought for all of us. Now it's my turn. He set the first camera above the kitchen doorway. And I swear to God, for the first time in weeks, I felt like I wasn't drowning anymore. By the time evening fell, I had a social worker on my side, a nurse who'd seen this kind of abuse before, a computer-savvy grandson building a digital fortress around me, a lawyer's card in my hand, and a recorder full of truth that would make Lisa's stomach drop through the floor. But plans have beginnings, not endings. And the first step, calling attorney Margaret Chen. Zach nudged the phone toward me. Do it. I stared at the business card. My hands shook, not from age, but from everything this call represented. I dialed. 1 ring. 2 rings. Then, Law Office of Margaret Chin, how can we help? I took a breath. My daughter is trying to take guardianship of me, I said, and I think she's stealing from me. I have proof. I need help. There was a pause, long enough for me to wonder if I'd said too much. Then the voice said, "Please come in tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. Bring everything." Everything. I knew exactly what she meant. The war was about to begin. I barely slept the night before meeting Attorney Chen, not because I was scared, not anymore, but because my mind kept running through every moment Lisa had pushed me toward the edge, every lie, every dad you just forgot, every time she smiled while tightening the leash. By the time dawn slipped through the blinds, I was already dressed, button-down shirt, my old Timex, the same flannel jacket I used to wear on early shifts at the Ford plant. Something about that jacket made me feel grounded, like the man I used to be still lived somewhere under the wrinkles. Zach showed up at 7:15 a.m., holding his laptop and a folder full of printed screenshots. "You ready?" he asked. "As I'll ever be." He drove. My truck has seen better years, and the roads were still glazed with melt and freeze ice patches. Cincinnati in January doesn't care about your legal problems. It'll spin you out just the same. We pulled up to the office, a brick building on Montgomery Road, modest but clean, with a metal plaque beside the door. Margretchen, Attorney at Law. Elder Rights Probate Defense Family Asset Protection. My throat tightened as we walked inside. I'd spent 79 years building a life, a family, a home, and one person, my own child, nearly took it all from under me. Not today. Margaret Chin wasn't what I expected. She was small, maybe 5'2", late 40s, sharp bob haircut, dark eyes that missed nothing. She shook my hand with a grip strong enough to tell me she'd seen every kind of ugly family fight and walked out swinging. "Mr. Carver," she said, "I read the summary you gave my assistant. Let's start from the beginning, and don't hold anything back." So I told her everything. Zach laid out the bank logins, the IP trail, the unauthorized authorization, the attempted guardianship, the APS visit, the recordings. When he played the first audio file, Lisa's voice telling me I'd forgotten conversations that never happened, Margaret leaned in so slowly and so deliberately that I knew she'd already decided something important. She paused the recording halfway through. "Mr. Carver," she said, "your daughter didn't just lie. She created a pattern of documented false assertions in front of medical professionals, social services, financial institutions." I swallowed hard. "So what does that mean?" "It means," she said calmly, "she committed elder financial exploitation and possibly fraud." Zach sat up straighter. "Can we stop her?" Margaret nodded. "Yes, but it has to be done strategically. If we move too fast, she'll claim you're being manipulated. If we move too slow, she'll get temporary guardianship granted by default." "Then what do we do?" I asked. Margaret folded her hands. "We set a trap." The plan was simple in theory, brutal in execution. Let Lisa think she still had control. If she suspected I had legal help, she'd change tactics, maybe back off, maybe disappear. We couldn't let her. Get her talking on the record. Margaret needed fresh evidence, recent, crystal clear, impossible for Lisa to claim was old or taken out of context. Create a moment where Lisa would incriminate herself. Legally, directly, with no wiggle room. Have witnesses ready. APS, a neutral third party, and my lawyer on standby. Keep me weak. This part tasted the worst. Margaret said, "Your strength is a threat to her strategy. You need to let her think you're vulnerable." I hated that, hated every damn second of it, but she was right. "How do we get her to come over?" Zach asked. Margaret smiled, a small, sharp smile that told me she was no one's fool. "Oh," she said, "she'll come. She's already invested too much. She thinks she's winning." She turned to me. "Mr. Carver, call her tonight. Tell her you're confused. Tell her you found some mail you don't understand. Tell her you need help." I felt heat rise in my chest. I won't lie. "You're not lying," she said. "You are confused about why your own daughter is trying to take what's yours. Let her think she's succeeding. That's not deception. That's strategy." I looked down at my hands. Old hands. Wrinkled vein trembling slightly, not from fear, but from the anger I'd been carrying since December. "Fine," I whispered. "I'll call her." By the time we got back home, the plan was already unfolding. Zach installed 2 more cameras, one in the hallway, one facing the dining table. "Don't worry," he said. "They're hidden better than my student debt." I chuckled despite myself. Then he set the recorder on the kitchen counter and tested the mic. Crystal clear. "Grandpa," he said, "no matter what she says, you just stay calm. Let her talk." That was the hardest part, staying calm, letting her spin her lies without jumping across the table, but I knew what was at stake. My house, my truck, my savings, my decisions, my life. I wasn't losing any of it. At 6:22 p.m. after dinner, microwaved chicken and mashed potatoes that tasted like chalk, I picked up the phone. Her name flashed on the screen from our last call, Lisa Carver. I hit call, put the phone on speaker so Zach could hear. She answered on the second ring. "Dad, everything okay?" Her voice was syrupy sweet, fake sweet, poison sweet. "Lisa," I said, putting a tremor in my tone, "not too much, just enough. I got some letters today, from the bank, something about changes. I don't remember doing any of it." Silence on the line. Then, "Dad, see, this is what I'm talking about. You're overwhelmed, you need help." My stomach turned. "Could you come by?" I asked quietly. I don't know what to do." Another pause, this one longer. Then she said exactly what Margaret predicted she would. "I'll be there tomorrow morning. And Dad, don't worry, I'll take care of everything." "Everything?" Zach ended the call for me. His jaw was tight. "She's coming in hot." I nodded slowly. "Let her." I walked through the house after he left, touching the old furniture, the picture frames, the worn wooden banister Mary used to complain about. Everything felt heavier tonight, like the house itself knew it was about to be judged, measured, sized up for sale. But this was my home, mine. And tomorrow morning, when Lisa walked through that door smug and certain she'd won, she'd have no idea she was stepping into the last conversation she'd ever control. I went to bed early, staring at the ceiling, listening to the creaks and sighs of the house that had held my entire life. I whispered into the dark, "Mary, if you can hear me, I'm fighting back." And somehow I swear the house settled just a little, like it approved. Tomorrow would be the beginning of the end. I woke before sunrise the next morning. Not because of nerves, those had burned off days ago, but because I could feel something settling in my bones. A steadiness, a readiness, the kind of clarity I hadn't felt since my last day working the line at the Ford plant, when a man knows what he has to do and nothing on this earth is going to move him from it. I brewed coffee strong enough to wake a corpse and sat at the kitchen table listening to the quiet hum of the furnace. The house felt different that morning, not lighter, not heavier, just alert, like it knew the show was about to start. Zach arrived at 8:30 a.m., laptop in hand, cables dangling, wearing that determined look young people get when they've decided they're done letting bad things happen to good people. "You ready?" he asked. "As I'll ever be," I said. He checked the cameras, one in the hallway vent, one in the bookshelf, one above the stove hood. All green lights, all set. "Remember," he said, leaning in, "you let her talk, you don't accuse her, you don't get angry. You just let her step in every hole she dug for you." I nodded. "I've been letting her talk for months." He gave a grim smile. "Yeah, well, today it pays off." The arrival. At 9:41 a.m., a silver Nissan pulled into my driveway. I saw it from the living room window. The way she sat in the car for a full minute before getting out, adjusting her hair in the mirror, straightening her coat, rehearsing whatever story she'd built in her head. Always presenting. Always performing. She walked up the steps with this soft, pitying expression she'd perfected, something between caregiver and martyr. The kind of look people wear when they want the world to know they've tried their best. I opened the door before she could knock. "Dad," she said, her voice thick with practiced concern, "you sounded so confused last night. Are you feeling any better?" "I don't know," I murmured, letting my shoulders sag just enough. She touched my arm and stepped inside. The recorder in my shirt pocket hummed like a heartbeat. Zach stayed in the back bedroom, door cracked, headphones on. He wasn't hiding, he was monitoring the audio, making sure every word was captured clean. The softening. Lisa set her purse down and did a slow sweep of the room the way she always did lately, assessing, judging, taking mental notes for whatever story she planned to tell next. "Dad," she said gently, "I just want what's best for you. That's why I came." "You said you could help with the letters," I asked, putting a slight quiver into my voice, not too much, just enough to invite her confidence. She smiled, warm, comforting, fake as a polyester sweater. "Of course, show me." I handed her the bank letter. She read it quickly, then sighed like a burdened saint. "Dad, this is exactly why we need to move forward with guardianship. You're getting overwhelmed. You're not managing things the way you used to." Her tone wasn't cruel. That would have been easier. It was pitying, belittling, soft domination. I let my gaze drop. "Maybe you're right." She froze. That wasn't the answer she expected. "I am," she asked. I nodded, shoulders slumped. "Maybe I do need help." Her entire face lit up. Relief. Triumph. Greed disguised as compassion. She reached for my hand. "Dad, I promise you, once everything's in my name, I can handle all the bills, the house, your medical appointments. You won't have to worry anymore. Once everything's in my name." There it was. The exact phrase Margaret said she would use. I said nothing. Just let the silence stretch. Lisa took it as permission. She lowered her voice. "I already spoke with a bank manager. He said once the guardianship is approved, we can move your savings just to keep things secure." "My savings," I repeated softly. "All of it," she said. "Your checking, your IRA, the house deed. It's better if I have control so you don't have to stress about things you might forget." Forget. That damn word again. I lifted my eyes slowly. "Lisa, I don't want to be a burden." She squeezed my hand. "You're not, but you need someone to take care of things. You need me." Her voice cracked with fake emotion. "Oscar-worthy." So I asked quietly, "What do I sign?" Her eyes widened with excitement. She tried poorly to hide. "I brought the papers," she said, reaching into her purse. "I printed everything out. We can file them today if you're up to it." She placed the documents in front of me. "Right there. In my kitchen. Guardianship over my finances. Guardianship over my medical decisions. Guardianship over me." She pushed a pen toward my hand. "Dad, just sign." And that was the moment her downfall began. Because I didn't reach for the pen. I reached for my phone. I dialed a number on speaker. Lisa frowned. "Dad, who are you calling?" I didn't answer. The line rang once. Twice. Then a calm, firm voice filled the kitchen. "This is Attorney Margaret Chen." Lisa's face drained of color. Her mouth opened. Closed. Opened again. "Attorney, what's going on?" she stammered. I looked her dead in the eye. "Lisa," I said softly, "we're doing this with a witness, just like you wanted." Margaret's voice sharpened. "Ms. Carver, this is Margaret Chen. I'm representing your father. I'm on my way." Lisa stood. "Representing Dad, what the hell is this?" I leaned back in my chair, my voice steady and clear, a voice she hadn't heard in months. "It's me," I said. "It's always been me. I never forgot a damn thing, and I recorded everything." Her knees buckled. She grabbed the chair back. What do you mean recorded?" That's when Zach stepped out of the hallway. Headphones around his neck. Laptop in his hands. Every word she'd ever used to destroy me loaded and time-stamped. She stared at him like he'd betrayed her personally. Zach, what are you? He cut her off, his voice low and furious. You're done, Aunt Lisa. She opened her mouth, but she didn't get another word out. Because at that exact moment, a knock hit the door. Firm, authoritative. Lisa turned toward it, confused, already unraveling. Who is that? I stood, straightened my jacket, walked past her trembling form, and opened the door. To Daniel Brooks. APS. Clipboard in hand. Expression hard as stone. Mr. Carver, he said, we're here to finalize your statement. Behind him stood a uniformed sheriff's deputy. Lisa's breath hitched. The trap had sprung. I swear the temperature in that doorway dropped 10 degrees when Lisa saw the sheriff's deputy. Her face went pale, not just scared pale, but the kind of pale you get when a doctor reads test results you weren't prepared for. Her eyes darted from Daniel to the deputy, to me, to the recorder bulging in my shirt pocket. Dad, she whispered, voice trembling, what is this? It's the truth, I said calmly, and it's been walking toward you for a long time. Daniel stepped inside, clipboard tucked under his arm, jaw tight. The deputy followed, broad-shouldered, expression neutral but watchful. The kind of man you don't try to lie to unless you enjoy handcuffs. Ms. Carver, Daniel said, we have some questions about the guardianship filing, the financial transactions, and the statements you've been making regarding your father's cognitive health. Lisa swallowed hard. Why is APS here again? I thought we already. Daniel cut her off. This is an active investigation. Her breath caught. Investigation for what? Zach stepped forward, holding his laptop like a shield. For everything you did. Zach, she snapped, you don't understand. Oh, I understand, he shot back. I understand perfectly. She flinched. The denial. Lisa straightened her coat, trying to rebuild whatever version of composure she could salvage. Dad, she said, trying to take my arm, these people are confused. You need me to explain. I stepped back. Her eyes widened in hurt, fake hurt, the kind she'd perfected. Dad, please. Stop, I said, my voice low. Stop calling everything concern. Stop pretending this is about helping me. Stop acting like I can't see through you. I was trying to protect you, she whispered, but the lie was thin and cracking at the seams. Daniel unfolded a sheet on his clipboard. Ms. Carver, you reported multiple incidents of cognitive decline. You alleged your father was disoriented, forgetful, unable to manage finances. He is, she insisted. He gets confused. He isn't, Daniel said firmly, and we have proof. Her lips parted, proof. Zach clicked his laptop, and the kitchen filled with her voice. Dad, you must have forgotten. We talked about this. You confuse me with Mom. Once everything's in my name. The sound was crisp, clear, undeniable. Lisa's hand shook. Those recordings are out of context, she stammered. He is confused. He doesn't remember. Actually, Zach said coldly, these were recorded on days you didn't know he had the recorder on. His responses were consistent every time. Yours were. Lisa turned on me then, eyes wild, desperate, cornered. Dad, how could you do this? Spy on me, record me, after everything I've done for you. I held her gaze. You did it to yourself. Daniel placed another document on the table. Ms. Carver, we also have concerns about unauthorized changes to your father's bank accounts. I had permission, she said instantly. The deputy stepped closer. Ma'am, the bank logs do not support that. Her breathing quickened. He told me. He must have forgotten. He forgets things. That's why we're here. No, I said quietly. I didn't forget. I trusted you. That landed. I could see it hit her chest like a sledgehammer. Her knees wobbled. You don't understand, she burst out. I needed help. I was drowning. I had bills. I was behind on the mortgage. I had no one. Dad, you could help. You had money sitting there doing nothing. So you took it? I asked softly. Her breath froze. Zach looked at her like she just slapped him. Aunt Lisa, you stole from him. "I borrowed it," she cried. "I borrowed it and I was going to pay it back." The deputy wrote something in his little notepad. Lisa's voice cracked. "I wasn't going to let him waste everything. He doesn't need that much money, he barely spends." I cut her off gently. "Lisa, it was my money, my life savings, my home, my dignity." Her face twisted. "And what about me? What about what I've been through?" "There it is," I said, "the truth." She looked like she'd been slapped. "You weren't helping me," I continued. "You were helping yourself." "Dad, stop. You weren't worried about my memory. You were worried about your own life falling apart." She shook her head violently. "You don't know what it's like." "No," I said, "but I know what it's like to lose your wife and still never steal from your children." Silence. Heavy. Sharp. Devastating. "Ms. Carver," the deputy said, "I need you to step aside for a moment." She blinked. Am I in trouble?" "We need to determine the extent of the financial discrepancies," he replied. "Depending on what we find, we may open a fraud investigation." Her voice shrank. No, please, you don't understand, I didn't mean." He raised a hand. "Ma'am, you need to stop talking." She pressed her hands to her head, like she could squeeze the panic out. Lisa turned back to me, tears welling. Real tears this time, not crafted ones. "Dad, I'm sorry. I didn't want to lose everything." I felt something inside me twist. Pain, not anger, because this was my daughter, my little girl, my blood. But the damage she caused. That wasn't a mistake. It was a choice. I placed my hand on the table steady. "I didn't want to lose everything either," I said. Her breath broke. And just like that, the fight inside her crumpled. She sagged into the chair like her bones had turned to dust. Daniel turned to me. "Mr. Carver, once the full report is filed, the court will likely dismiss her guardianship petition entirely." "And after that?" I asked. He exchanged a look with the deputy. "That depends," Daniel said. "But with the evidence you have, there may be grounds for protective orders, reimbursement, possibly criminal charges." Lisa gasped. "Criminal, Dad, please." I didn't answer. Not yet. Not until I talked to Margaret. Not until I understood the cost of mercy and the cost of letting this go. But one thing was certain. The power she had taken from me. The story she tried to write about me. The dignity she tried to strip away. I had taken all of it back. And she knew it. Tomorrow I would decide her fate. I sat alone at my kitchen table the next morning, the documents spread out in front of me like a second battlefield. The sheriff's deputy had left. Daniel had left. Even Zach had gone home after hours of combing through evidence, making sure every timestamp, every file, every line of data was airtight. And Lisa had walked out of my house in tears. She didn't look back. The sun was barely up, pale winter light slipping between the blinds, catching the steam rising from my coffee. I felt older than I ever had, older than the years in my bones, older than the creaks in this house. But I also felt something I hadn't felt in months. Control. My own life back in my own hands. I stared at the papers. Among them was a question I'd been avoiding since last night. Do I file charges? Daniel's preliminary report was clear. The guardianship attempt would be dismissed. The bank had already begun reversing the unauthorized changes. Lisa would be removed from every account, every access point. My life was safe again. But justice? That was a different question. And justice wasn't clean. Not when it involved your own child. I rubbed the bridge of my nose. My hands shook, not from fear, but from the weight of the decision in front of me. That was when the knock came. Soft, hesitant, almost apologetic. I knew who it was before I opened the door. Lisa stood there wrapped in her coat, eyes swollen and red. The fierce, self-assured woman from yesterday was gone. In her place stood someone smaller, someone lost, someone who realized too late the consequences of what she'd built. "Dad," she whispered. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. The cold air drifted into the house, carrying the scent of wet pavement and winter. Finally, I stepped aside. "Come in." She moved slowly, like someone walking through a dream she didn't want to be in anymore. She sat where she always sat, across from me at the kitchen table, the same seat she used to sit in as a kid doing homework. She looked down at her hands. "I know what I did. I know I crossed lines you don't come back from." Silence settled between us. She wiped her eyes. "I wasn't trying to hurt you, Dad. I was scared. Everything in my life was falling apart, and you were the only constant, the only place left to turn." I nodded slowly. "Then you should have asked, not taken." Her chin trembled. "I know." I wanted to believe her. God, a part of me did believe her. But another part, the part that had recorded her lies, the part that watched her hand those papers to Daniel, the part that heard her say, "Once everything's in my name," that part knew better. There are mistakes. And then there are choices. Lisa finally looked up. "What happens now?" I took a long breath. "That's what I'm deciding." She swallowed. "Dad, please, I know you're angry. I know I deserve it. I don't want to lose you. I don't want jail. I don't want—" her voice cracked. "I don't want to be the reason you stop loving me." That one hit harder than anything she'd said in months. My heart didn't break. It stretched, pulled tight, painful. "You're my daughter," I said softly. "I'll always love you, but love doesn't erase what happened." She nodded, biting back a sob. "I'll pay you back," she whispered. "Every penny. I'll sign whatever you want. I'll walk away from the house, from the accounts. Just please don't ruin my life." A long silence settled between us, too heavy, too real. I looked at her, really looked. The fear, the regret, the shame, the cracks in a woman who thought she was stronger than consequences. And I saw something else too. The daughter I used to know. Small, fragile, terrified, trying to hide behind grown-up mistakes. I closed my eyes, exhaled. When I opened them, the decision was made. "I won't press criminal charges," I said quietly. Her breath left her in a shuddering sob. She covered her mouth and cried, shoulders shaking. But I continued, "We're done. You stay out of my finances, my house, my accounts, everything. And if you ever try something like this again, I won't hesitate." She nodded rapidly, tears falling. "I understand. And you will pay back what you took, slowly, honestly, no lies, no excuses." "I will," she choked out. "I swear." She stood up, wiping her eyes. For a moment she hesitated. "Dad, thank you," she whispered, "for not giving up on me." I didn't answer. She left quietly, the door clicking shut behind her, a soft sound with the weight of an ending. Where I stand now. It's been 8 months since that morning. My accounts are secure. The guardianship petition was dismissed with prejudice. Lisa pays me $200 a month, every month without fail. Sometimes she includes a note. Sometimes she doesn't. We see each other on holidays, polite, cautious, like two people who survived a car accident together and still flinch at traffic lights. And me. I'm still here. Still sharp. Still driving my old F-150. Still making coffee that could strip paint. Still walking into Kroger every Thursday. But I'm different too. I learned something no old man wants to learn. You can love your children and still guard yourself from them. You can forgive and still never forget. And sometimes the cruelest betrayal is the one done softly, with a smile, in the name of help. My recorder sits in the kitchen drawer now. Not because I need it, but because I earned the right to keep it. A reminder of the day they thought I was slipping. But I was the only one paying attention. And when the storm came, I didn't go down. I fought. And I won.